Today we explore the lives of the first hoglets born in Hedgehog's Hollow. Hello everyone, my name is Mike and Hedgehog's Hollow is the land at the bottom of my garden. Today we're going to be looking at the early stages of the lives of two hoglets who were born within one of the houses in the hollow and also spent their first winter hibernating in the hollow. The hoglets were born around the beginning of September but only made their first appearance around 4 weeks later. Initially just one appeared, but this was more likely a mistake, and very quickly the hoglet realized its mistake and returned inside the house. The very next evening, however, Mother Hog introduced us to her two hoglets, a male and a female, which we dubbed Henry and Hallie. Now, it's a fact about hedgehogs that they can't keep count of their litters. Unlike other species who know exactly how many young they should have at all times, hedgehogs can become a bit forgetful, and Mum proved this within the first 60 seconds of taking her two hoglets out for a walk, nearly forgetting one, who eventually made its way back to the house. Fortunately, Mum had realised eventually that she was missing a hog and was at the doorway waiting for her little errant hoglet. As the days passed, we were treated to more and more visits and sightings of Mum and her hedgehogs. Not always both hedgehogs, on occasion we only saw one, as you can see here. Mum would always come out for a snack, have some dinner just after the family had woken up, and the little hogs were quite interested in what was being left in the bowl to eat. Even though at this stage they probably are still suckling with Mum, they were slowly being introduced to these biscuits in the bowl and seemingly quite enjoying them. Day by day, the hoglets got bigger and stronger and more active on their feet. So every time they came out, they became a little bit more of a deterrent to Mum as they raced around her, enjoying their own company as well as enjoying the opportunity to distract Mum while she was trying to eat. Some evenings she just had to relent. The kids were just too determined and too hungry and wanted a feed, and eventually, almost forcefully, forced the whole family back into the house so that Mum could feed the kids. Mum tried as best she can to get a routine through the course of the evening. Having woken the family and fed herself, she would then go back, feed the kids and settle down with them in the garden for a short while. But eventually she would begin moving off, leaving the garden and leaving the kids to their own devices. And they seemed quite comfortable with this. They would explore, they would run around chasing each other, identifying and learning new skills for themselves, and also exploring the garden and understanding it more for themselves. But eventually Mum came back, usually around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and when she did, the kids were always terribly excited to see her, clamoring around her, racing around in circles, bumping her, nudging her, and eventually everyone settled down for a late night meal. It was great to see the young hoglets grow, and as they did, their personalities started to develop. Hallie, the young female, was a lot more curious and independent than Henry, and Hallie often found herself exploring the garden out on her own, whilst Henry stayed with Mum a lot more. But every now and then we saw the two hoglets interact, and you could almost hear them laugh and giggle as they played and rolled and roughhoused through the garden. And this was great to watch and a real privilege to see this activity between the two hoglets. At the end of the day though, these are just wild animals that are visiting Hedgehog's Hollow. And in the course of nature, mother hedgehogs will leave their young to fend for themselves. And that's what happened to Halle and Henry. One evening Mum went out for her evening adventures and she never returned. She left Halle and Henry to fend for themselves within Hedgehog's Hollow. And so they did. They started working out how to feed themselves. They started working out how to find their own home. And this is Henry finding the smaller of the two hedgehog houses and starting to collect and fit it out for purpose, collecting bedding ready to fill it up. Unfortunately, he didn't at first seem quite sure what to do or how much bedding may be required. And so it was a little bit of a struggle for him to learn what to do, how to do it, and how to get it back into the house. By comparison for Hallie, she seemed a natural, and she rushed about Hedgehog's Hollow collecting leaves, straw, hay, and dashing in and out of the larger of the two hedgehog houses, filling it to the brim with bedding material, making it full and nice and warm for herself. She seemed absolutely determined with the pace and determination that she ran around the hedgehog hollow, collecting and filling back and forth several times in very few minutes. Sometimes though, her determination and ambition seemed to outweigh what was actually possible. Whilst the relationship between the sibling hedgehogs started off really well, really amicably, and they had grown up in each other's company, at some point at the beginning of November, Henry went out for a walk and didn't return for a full week, leaving Hallie alone in Hedgehog's Hollow. Her personality seemed to change and she definitely seemed to notice Henry's absence. When he did return about a week later, the relationship between the two hedgehogs had changed and it was never quite the same. And here you can see Henry at the back approaching Hallie and you can see her response. And that relationship was to continue in that vein throughout their time together until they actually left Hedgehog's Hollow late in 2020. Here's another example of how the relationship had changed. Here we have Henry in the foreground eating at the closest of the two bowls and Hallie approaching from behind. And whilst at first she seems completely nonplussed at his presence, scratching and just kind of getting herself ready, what follows is clear that she no longer appreciates Henry at all. And as I say, that was the tone that was to follow. Henry and Hallie, though siblings, never quite got along as well as they did when they were hoglets. And as I say, that continued all the way through till their hibernation and beyond. And so soon it was time for the two hoglets, now grown hedgehogs, to settle down for winter and to hibernate. Not before Henry went out of the garden and got himself a Christmas tree, which he seems to have brought back to his house. And that's where we end this episode, with the hoglets happily hibernating. Thank you for watching, and don't forget, if you enjoyed this, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to make sure you don't miss future episodes here from Hedgehog's Hollow.